Hey ladies and gentlemen, Wolf Crier here and welcome to another build guide. So this build guide is for the Wave of Light speed farming build, mainly for T10 to T12 speed farming of keys, BBs, and maybe even some rainbow goblins, that type of stuff. Pet goblins, whatever you want to use it for. It's also very useful for farming GR 45 to 55 speed runs to level up those very low level caldessan gems as quick as possible. You can do about a minute 30-second GR 45s and about 2 to 2.5 minute 50 and 55s, depending on your gear and the layout of the map you get, that type of thing. So let's go ahead and dive right into the gear, ladies and gentlemen. First thing you're going to be running is the Sun Wuko's 6-piece set. You're going to accomplish this by wearing 5 pieces of Sun Wuko's, the shoulders, gloves, chest piece, pants, and the amulet. And you will also be using the royal ring in the cube. That's going to give you the 6-piece set bonus, which is going to allow your Wave of Light to consume a stack of Sweeping Wind to deal 3,000% increased damage. Now the next item of gear that we are going to be using is Sokrin's Gaze, the helm that allows your Wave of Light to be cast at your enemy instead of yourself. And next up we have Pinto's Pride, the bracers that are definitely necessary for this build. Wave of Light slows your enemies and increases the damage of your Wave of Light by up to 150%. Then we also wear Kayashiro's Soul, the belt that allows your Sweeping Wind to gain 2 stacks every second that it does not deal any damage to enemies. And since you are a ranged mage caster monk, this is a very useful item to keep you from consuming all of your stacks and having to reapply your Sweeping Wind after each cast of your Wave of Light. And then we have Kayashiro's Blade. This fist weapon increases the damage of Wave of Light by 150%, and if you hit 3 or fewer enemies, the damage is increased by up to 250%. Very necessary for this build as well. Then we have Ingeom. I use this whenever I'm speed farming with this build because it allows you to get across the map, find more elites, and that type of thing, as your Dashing Strike will come off cooldown very fast, as will your Epiphany, and you'll be able to bounce around from elite pack to elite pack and just wreck them. Then we have Crudest Boots. These are mainly just to have 2 Mystic Allies, and I use the Air Mystic Allies so that these boots are pretty much just for spirit regen, as I try to make it where I do not have any spirit regeneration problems whatsoever. And usually when I'm running this build, I don't end up having any spirit regen problems, but if you do, you can pop the Mystic Ally active with the Air Ally and it will give you all of your spirit back so that you can continue on your merry little farming way. Now for one of your rings, I suggest Convention of Elements. SOJ is also a viable option here, but Convention of Elements, every time you're on that fire rotation, you're going to gain up to 200% increased damage, which is going to be massive. Every time you roll around a fire, you're just going to obliterate everything on the screen. And very useful for Rift Guardians. If you end up on your fire rotation, it's going to just wreck that Rift Guardian. For the other ring, I use Avarice Band. This is going to increase your pickup radius every time you pick up gold, which is going to stack up to 30 times, so that all those progression balls can be picked up nice and easy while you're in a Nephilim Rift. That is the only reason I use this. I would switch this out to a SOJ in Greater Rifts. Now, in your cube, you will be using the Incense Torch of the Grand Temple. This reduces the spirit cost of Wave of Light by 50%, which is also going to help with your spirit regeneration, and you're not going to really have any spirit problems with this build if you wear all this gear, etc. And then I use Nemesis Bracers. Shrines and Pylons will spawn an enemy champion. I use this for speed farming because the more elite packs you get, the faster the rift goes. And last but not least is the Royal Ring of Grandeur. This is what allows you to wear 5 pieces of that Sun Wukong set and gain the 6-piece set bonus. Very necessary for this build as well. So, ladies and gentlemen, there you have the gear. Let's take a look at the gems. All right, so the first gem that we are using is Zay's Stone of Vengeance. Zay's Stone of Vengeance allows you to gain more damage the further you are from your enemies. And since we are a ranged caster mage, this is very effective and helps us deal even more damage. And then we have Bane of the Trapped, which allows us to deal even more damage as its damage increase is multiplicative, and we just end up with a ton of damage using Zay's and Bane of the Trapped. And the last gem that I utilize is Bane of the Powerful. This is going to give us a damage boost after every elite pack that we kill, and it is also going to allow us to deal even more damage to elites and take less damage from them. And this is going to go really well with your Ingeom, as you are pretty much just killing elites and then dashing to another elite pack, and rinse and repeat. This is how you do your speed runs. You just go from elite pack to elite pack to elite pack while you're just blasting everything on the screen as you go. So those 3 gems go very, very well with this build. If you were pushing GRs, I would definitely change out Bane of the Powerful for Stricken, something like that, but this build, as it sits right here, is not a very viable high GR pusher. This is meant for DB farming, key farming, goblin farming, and low-level gem farming. So you definitely want to keep that in mind. This is not going to do 75 GRs very efficiently. I guess it would depend if you got a couple primal ancient weapons, that type of thing. Maybe you can push it that far and do some 6-7 minute runs. But for the most part, the way this build is set up, it is a speed farming build. Now, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to take a look at the skills. All right, first up we have Mystic Ally, Air Ally. Combined with the Crudest Boots, this passive will make sure that we keep our spirit regeneration going, and the active will allow us to top off our spirit whenever we need to. Next up, we have Sweeping Wind, Inner Storm. Combined with the 2-piece of the Sun Wukong set, that allows us to gain a 50% damage reduction bonus, and using Inner Storm will help with that spirit regeneration as well. So the thing with the skills and the passives that I use with this build, they are mainly for spirit regeneration and movement speed, since this is a speed farming build. Next up we have Epiphany, Desert Shroud, a 50% damage reduction and allowing you to gain more spirit whenever this is active, and it also allows you to teleport to enemies if your dashing strike is on cooldown. And then we do have Dashing Strike, Way of the Falling Star. Now, Way of the Falling Star is going to give you a movement speed after every dash, and when combined with your Ingeom, you will be able to dash around quite a bit because you will be going from elite pack to elite pack and dashing your way through the GR or the Nephilim Rift. Then we have our main source of damage, Wave of Light, Explosive Light. This is going to send out fire damage and branch out from the epicenter of where you cast your Wave of Light. And last but not least is Mantra of Conviction, Annihilation. Annihilation will also add another movement speed buff to everything that is killed while within that 30-yard radius. All right, ladies and gentlemen, let's now move on to the passives. First up, we have Fleet-Footed, which is going to grant us a 10% movement speed buff at all times. And then we have Momentum, which is going to allow us to deal more damage the further we move. Every 25 yards that we move, we deal increased damage. And then we have Beacon of Yitar, which is going to give us a 20% cooldown buff. And cooldown is never a bad thing, especially in a speed farming build. And then lastly, we have Harmony, which is going to increase our resistances by adding 40% of our single elemental resistance to our all res. All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for checking out this build guide. Let me know in the comment section what you think of this build guide, and also let me know what you're going to be playing for next season. So once again, I do greatly appreciate you taking the time out of your day to watch my video. Thank you so very much, and make sure you hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, and you guys have a great night. Peace.